Welcome back, and thank you for joining us, Shark's Perspective, the podcast with subject matter experts in marketing. Are you building upon your MarTech stack, adding an online product piece to your website, or even using AI and machine learning, all the while keeping the customer at the center of it all? Or does your product development focus more on the business case of your internal users? Chris Darner is the Executive Director of Product at the Venetian Resort and Casino and Las Vegas Sands Corporation, and he's a subject matter expert at product management to improve the customer experience. And on this episode, we'll discuss AI, machine learning, the speed of MarTech, and how product marketers can and should fill the gaps along a customer journey by developing products that are focused first on the customer. So let's listen in to a Venetian product expert with a product of Shark on this episode of A Shark's Perspective. Chris, thank you so much for joining us on A Shark's Perspective today. If you would please give us a little overview on your background and your career thus far.
Sure. My name is Chris Garner. I am a product manager. I've been a product manager for a long time now. I came actually from the film industry in New York City. I went to film school and kind of stumbled my way into the internet space and stumbled my way into managing a design firm, and that led to a role at Netflix where I headed up product management there for many years. After that, I transitioned to doing some consulting. Then I worked at a gaming company, a casual gaming company, and then eventually ended up at a series of additional startups that ultimately led me here to working at the Venetian Casino Resort in Las Vegas.
Well, we'll obviously dive in shortly with your experience in the hospitality and gaming, but what was Netflix like in those years and your time there? I know you were early in and helping them just get prepared for just ridiculous, rocket growth, but that must have been pretty exciting.
Yeah, it was. I think the two kind of things that I look back on with my time there is, one, how prescient they were about what was ahead of them. I mean, when I started there, even during my interview, they basically mapped out what they became, right? And this was, 16, 17, 18 years ago now. And so they had a keen sense of what they wanted to become. I remember at the time it was DVDs, and I commented, DVDs are a very temporary medium, and they said, well, there's a reason we're called Netflix. But they, so the two things that really impressed me were that they had this clean sense of what they were going to become, and then they also very methodically arrived at success by filling in the gaps. So they thought of the business as a very complicated math equation, of which there were many, many variables that were interrelated, of which they had answers to none. And they really designed the business and the business structure and the strategy to slowly inform those variables so that they could eventually arrive at a very successful, profitable business.
So you work at the Venetian now in Vegas, and I think we all need to know just exactly how much Italian do you speak?
I speak a few words. There's a lot of Italian across the property. Our loyalty program is called Grazie. Our cafeteria is called Ciao and Pronto. So there's little bits and pieces. I personally do not speak fluent Italian.
Yeah, well, I know you speak product marketing. So, other than robot overlords, which I've heard you reference before, how do you look at AI and machine learning in marketing today? And at least, how integrated is it into your daily marketing life and what you're thinking about and planning for regularly?
Well, I certainly think it's a major kind of area of interest and something that everybody in product marketing should be mindful of in the future state. I think, the handful of observations I'd make about machine learning and AI marketing is one, there's not, if you look at product marketing or marketing in general over the past 10 or 15 years, there's been this productization of marketing technologies and platforms that have really enabled the expertise for managing those programs to move away from technologists and IT and towards the business users and marketers, right? So if you look at platforms like HubSpot or, MailChimp or even Google Analytics or Heap, these are things where with very little upfront cost, you can unlock a lot of potential and opportunity to a marketing person that might not be very technically proficient. In the world of marketing, in the world of machine learning and AI, as it relates to marketing, that is not yet the case, right? Mm-hmm. I know Google is making some huge efforts to unlock that, and you see a consistent pattern in all of their marketing platforms, with the AdWords or Google 360. These are all things that now a business user can very easily set up and use. And or another good example was, it is the case now that somebody with not a lot of technical proficiency could walk into a business and kind of in a weekend, with the CEO's credit card, so to speak, mm-hmm. go in and set up MailChimp and connect it to, Infusionsoft, and then route that to, and build out, a website on Squarespace, and it connects to an e-commerce platform, and all this stuff happens very quickly. All these systems are really performant in talking to one another. But in the case of AI and machine learning, that we haven't gotten there yet. So that's, I think, one kind of observation. And I think the second one is that, and kind of connected, is that if you look at the organization, a marketing organization, you're going to need some people that are not likely in that organization yet. People like data scientists or data technologists, right, that have a very proficient and capable ability to build out and manage these systems that, again, are not in a place where a business user can set up and manage them yet.
That's such a good analogy about just having a credit card. I remember building out a lot of these massive tech stacks in the past that would take months and years to build out and plan. And to your point, you could just grab a credit card and be up and running in no time if you have the understanding and knowing how to do it.
Yeah, just get a few. You just need to copy paste the API keys between the systems and run a few test messages, and then next thing you know, you kind of have the business is up and running. And when there's no real opportunity to bolt in and plug in AI and machine learning. I mean, there are some solutions now that are kind of getting there. I know Optimizely has their platform has some personalization now that's interesting and leverages machine learning. Obviously, Adobe has some things there, but that's kind of more enterprise grade. Those are, and then I think the last thing I would say about machine learning and AI is that it's kind of sexy and appealing and attractive, and there's a lot of opportunity, but there's a lot of complexity. So I would, to any business that is, considering it, I would implore them to just make sure that you have all the low-hanging fruit taken care of, all the fundamentals are in good shape, and that there's not kind of, better business opportunity for less cost elsewhere in your kind of marketing strategy.
Sure. From a product marketing standpoint, how do you look at customer experience, and really help maximize that for the people that matter, the customers themselves?
Sure.
Where's your mindset sort of with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, coming from the product management background, I kind of, the three that are frequently cited are thinking about the business needs, and then the technology that's in place or could be in place, and then the user, and the user is kind of at the center of it all. And so I think if when I think of it, and certainly, product managers that I've worked with, I think you can kind of not go wrong, and if you put the customer and the user at the center of it all.
Oh, agreed.
That was certainly something we learned at Netflix. Then you really kind of try to steer the ship in accordance with the vision that's driven by a great customer experience. And then you think about the technology, and if there's some compromises you need to make or you need to adjust that vision, you do it, but you start from the user. And similarly, if there's some business constraints or some requisite things that you need to do that maybe slightly derivate from the ideal user experience, you make those compromises. But if you start at the center of your thinking from the user, that will, at least in my experience prior, and certainly something I learned at Netflix, that kind of gets you to the right place.
Couldn't agree more.
Quickly.
And it's such a simple shift in thinking that so many people, so many companies don't know how to make to think that way first, because they're always trying to solve the problem through their own lens, not that of the customer. But so when you start looking at products, are you, especially as we're advancing in technology, but with products, are you starting to see that you're becoming more Proactive or reactive as you begin to build out these products to support your tech stack?
I think it's a mix. I think you're, reactive in that the landscape is constantly changing. We've all seen those marketing technology stack diagrams
Yeah.
with 500 logos that could fill a wall. So I think certainly you'd be smart to be reactive in that that's what allows you to take advantage of changes and opportunities. And if something does something it didn't do 6 months ago, maybe you want to reconsider it. Or if something isn't doing the thing you thought it would do when you got it, you want to look for an alternative. And then I think you also obviously need to be proactive and think about, 18 months, 24 months, are we doing things now that will work in service of our needs then? Examples like GDPR are kind of the obvious ones there.
Yeah, I think those tech stack diagrams are going to start coming more quickly too. It's gotten to the point where you can't even wrap your brain around it quickly enough as it keeps getting bigger and then just keeps expanding. So what are the challenges that you have in building out your data tech stack? I mean, what's sort of keeping you up at night? I know you probably work with quite a few different systems.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think it's always a challenge, no matter where you are dealing with legacy systems. Certainly, in the hospitality system, we have our share of those, and so it's really important to understand, the capabilities and limitations of those, and factor that into your thinking.
Then talk a little bit, if you will, about the importance of having sort of a clean source of data, because obviously when you've got such a migration across all those different systems, you can have some issues with your data.
Yeah, that's a big one. When you're getting into machine learning and using AI to start informing things, it's critical that you have clean data. And I think that the challenge of that is proportionate to a lot of legacy systems and the data, right? The legacy data, you might have multiple systems that recorded, dates differently, or they might have timestamps that are all variations of different standards, and then even your current legacy systems might be reporting something in yet a different way. And so having some system or methodology to which that data is cleaned up is really critical, so that you can make kind of solid business decisions from that clean data set.
So, from a product standpoint, how do you coordinate all the agencies that play in your space? I mean, after all, you work at a large, very well polished brand, so obviously there's that input. But I mean, that typically a marketing team deals a lot with their agency or agencies, but product people often have as much or more input from the business users, internally, and then you become, the agency creating that product. But at the same time, you've got your external teams and your other internal marketing teams that are weighing in for that input. How do you sort of balance all that goes into your product build?
Yeah, I think there's it's always a challenge, and the mix of how to address it changes everywhere. I've worked at companies like Netflix or other startups where we had a dedicated team connected to a product area that could work very autonomously because they weren't having to manage resources across different projects, or prioritize different things against one another and pull resources off of one project to another. I've worked at companies that are very reliant upon agencies for design and development, UX, and these other things. And so I think you need to. I think my answer to that would be communication is critical, and making sure everybody is aware of what you're doing, but then also just being flexible. And as you go from business to business, or opportunity to opportunity, or as the internal mix of what you can do internally versus externally shift, you need to constantly be looking at that process and that methodology that you use to adjust and take advantage of whatever that mix of dependencies is, and the people involved are.
So obviously we've seen a lot of evolution, if you will. There are still a lot of marketers that are trying to evolve and get more of a data digital centric sort of mindset. Maybe they came over from traditional creative and brand agencies. But how do you sort of see the lifespan, the evolution, if you will, of a product marketer? Where do you see it sort of going next as you sort of look ahead in not only your own career, but how you see the whole job title sort of changing and evolving?
I think a shift that I see is that, I don't think brand marketing is going away at any point in time, but I think as digital technology increases its presence in a consumer's life and their comfort with apps, websites, transactions online, interfacing with digital interactions increases, I think those channels, those digital channels, are going to be increasingly seen as sales channels, and less so as the place you build out and affirm your brand. I mean, obviously, as you're building these digital experiences, they're always consistent with the brand sensibility and the brand voice. But I think, if you look at what a website was perceived as, 5 or 10 years ago, but even 5 years ago, it was this is an opportunity to tell the consumer, who we are and what we're about, and that is still definitely true. But I think increasingly there's a sales function to the technology that you present to your consumer, and whether it be you're looking to convert them into a customer or retain them as a customer and minimize churn, or there's a wide, it kind of varies business to business. But I think that the business function of these applications is going to be more prevalent, and by virtue of that, need to sit increasingly side by side with the brand function of them.
Agreed. So Chris, what kind of advice do you give to young marketers and product marketers today as they start looking at our industry? And I'm sure most of them that look at your resume would love to have, Netflix and the Venetian on their resume, and obviously that took a lot of hard work. But what kind of advice do you give those types of folks looking to do what you've done?
I would say go into every opportunity with the desire to learn something. Not every opportunity or every job, day to day is filled with interesting, compelling things.
No.
So I think it's really important to believe it or not. So I think it's really important to, identify those things or advocate for those things that are going to service your need to grow and learn personally while also complementary to the business goals. And I think the other big one is, do your best to surround yourself with smart people, right? I mean, I think, the worst thing you can do for your career is to try to design it such that you're the smartest person in the room, because you're not going to learn, and you're not going to grow, and those would be my kind of bits of advice for somebody that's just starting out.
So, Chris, we've come to the most crucial time on the show. Are you ready for the 5 most important questions that you're going to be asked today?
I am. I don't know that I'm ready, but I'm on the phone and obligated to answer them.
Very good. Let's go. Poker or blackjack?
I'm blackjack guy. I worked at a poker startup, but I prefer to. I'm impatient about when it comes to my gaming habits. So to me, there's just a constant barrage of decisions to make in blackjack that I prefer to poker.
Las Vegas Knights or Las Vegas Raiders?
Las Vegas Knights. Raiders aren't here yet, so I gotta give it to.
I'm thinking of the future.
I gotta give it to the. Yeah. I'll just go. I would change it to the Raiders in that case, because they'll show some love to the new guys in town.
Nice. You're at the Venetian, so gondola or a bass boat?
Oh, I'm a gondola. You have to go gondola. It's one of the most fun, interesting, novel things you can do when you visit Vegas. So I got to go with gondola.
It would be kind of funny to take a bass boat around the Venetian, though. Vegas.
Yeah, I don't know. It's pretty narrow, and I think the engine noise would detract from the singers, because all the gondolas have people busting out these operatic songs. So I think
True.
The bass boat. I feel guilty drowning out their talents.
True, but it would be good to see Bill Dance throw out a fishing line there right inside the Venetian. So here's a Vegas show question. Cirque du Soleil or David Copperfield?
I'm obligated to say Human Nature, the talented Australian singing group here at the Venetian.
Nice.
Performing, I think, 7 nights a week. It's a great show, and I would highly recommend it to anybody that is looking for their entertainment options in Vegas.
Human Nature Jukebox. Good choice. So, and the most important question that you're going to be asked today is biscuits or cornbread?
I'm going to go with biscuits. And the last place I had amazing biscuits is actually there's a restaurant here at our property called Yardbird that makes amazing biscuits, and they also make. I think they make their they put their chicken in a milk brine for 18 hours before you eat it. And I've never been a huge fried chicken person, but I was like, I could eat this every day. And they're biscuit, and they're also famous for the biscuits. So I would go biscuits combined with that fried chicken.
Well, I was a little frustrated that was a very subtle advertising spot placement, but now I'm actually really curious and
yeah, no,
I
I mean,
myself.
there's a location in Miami. I mean, I'm not. You need to go, or just I would say go try to eat 18-hour milk brined fried chicken somewhere.
There you go, Chris. Then where do people find out more about you, follow your thoughts, connect, etc.?
I'm not big on the social networks, but feel free to look me up on LinkedIn and add me. And if you have any questions or anything, I'm check in there occasionally, and I'm happy to hear from folks that are interested in product management or product marketing.
Chris, thank you so much for being on A Shark's Perspective today.
You're welcome, Ken.
So there was my conversation with Chris Darner, the Executive Director of Product at the Venetian Resort and Casino in Las Vegas Sands Corporation, and a subject matter expert at product management to improve the customer experience. Let's take a look at 3 key takeaways from my conversation with him. First, I love the point that Chris made about how there's been this productization of marketing technologies and platforms that has really enabled the expertise for managing those programs to move away from the technologists in IT to the business users and marketers. In the world of machine learning and AI, that's not yet the case, but you do see a lot of companies spreading to that enablement. I don't want to ever oversimplify this because there's a lot of large amounts of work with tying to back-end systems. However, with basically a credit card, you can set up a lot of technology and tools for your tech stack super quickly, so much faster than not that long ago. You can't even do that yet with machine learning and AI, but it won't be that far away. Second, when you're working with machine learning and AI to start informing things, it is critical that you have clean data. Keep it in mind when you're bringing in legacy systems especially, but it's critical so that you can make solid business decisions that come from a clean data set. Third, so many brands build products to support a business case first, but you cannot go wrong when you first focus your product design efforts on the customer. That way you can steer the ship that's driven with a great customer experience. You may need to make compromises and pivot along the way, but you cannot go wrong, even in product marketing, with a customer-first approach. Got a question? Send me an email to kenneth@asharksperspective.com. Thank you so much for spending this time with me in order to discuss one of the many components that makes up marketing today. So go be a product of your own success, and as my friends in Italy say, buona fortuna con il tuo marketing. E ciao, and join us on the next episode of A Shark's Perspective.